Second Life is an online virtual world created by Linden Lab in 2003. To date, Second Life has about 1 million users. Users can create avatars that reflect who they really are, but more often, users choose to create avatars that have the physical characteristics and personalities they desire in real life.
In Second Life, you can chat with other avatars, use a form of currency called Linden Dollars to shop and buy land, and create basically anything your heart desires. After all, Second Life's slogan is your world, your imagination. But does this idea end up going a little too far?
It has been discovered that there are user-created worlds based on illegal activities such as pedophilia, child prostitution, bestiality, and rape. One of the worlds that deals with pedophilia in particular is called Wonderland, contain childlike avatars, some as young as toddlers. The scenery contained things like playgrounds and classrooms, and the main focus of the world was dedicated to living out your fantasies with underage girls.
While users who frequent these worlds are able to solicit virtual sex acts from the underage avatars and engage in sexually explicit dialogue with them, many still say that they are technically not doing anything wrong because it is all virtual and through a computer screen. While virtual pedophilia is illegal in some countries like Germany with a fine of up to 5 years in jail, the United States has yet to declare it as such because real people are not being exploited. There is always the possibility that the people controlling the child avatars are actually adults.
But while you can say that the users are not actually committing real crimes, is it right to have these kinds of worlds dedicated to illegal practices in the first place? Does this glorify the acts? Does this kind of online behavior encourage real-life behaviors, which sets up the potential for many underage victims? It can also be said that Linden Lab continues to profit from the deviance of some of their users. These users are being taken advantage of because they are attracted to the freedom and openness of the Second Life experience.
Linden Lab does not record any of these messages and other interactions that go on in Second Life. Referring to Wonderland, they have been quoted as saying, "We have no firm evidence of wrongdoing from our investigations, nor from our abuse report channel." It seems that either Linden Lab does not conduct very thorough investigations, seeing as a simple Google search on the matter can render many sexual explicit images of children in Second Life worlds, or they simply do not see the act of virtual pedophilia as a problem as long as all parties involved are supposedly 18 and over. But does this step over the line of adult content into something much more serious?
The Second Life Terms of Service states that, in order to access Second Life regions or listings designated as moderate or adult-only content, you affirm that you are at least 18 years of age. You will further agree that as a condition to accessing moderate and/or adult-only content, you will submit to account verification as required by Linden and provide only true and accurate identification documentation to verify your age. But this is not a flawless age policy. While users are required to confirm their ages if asked by Linden Lab, this does not mean that underage people are not gaining access to these adult-only areas.
Think of it this way. Say an underage person wants to gain access to adult content, but they know they may have to submit to age verification. They can simply ask an older sibling or friend to sign up for them, and then play the game themselves. This runs the risk of underage individuals being potentially exposed to not just adult sexual content, but also the content dealing with pedophilia and interactions with dangerous individuals.
Ethan Farrell, an investigations editor for the UK's Sky News, created his own avatar on Second Life to see for himself just how easy it was to find worlds such as Wonderland, and what kinds of acts really went on. He said that I was close to seeing inside the mind of a pedophile as I ever wanted to be. There was no email addresses, no real names, and no electronic trail on your computer. If you viewed an image in Second Life, it stayed in Second Life. It was a place where potential pedophiles with the beginning of a dangerous obsession could develop it, roleplay it, and gain acceptance of it from others.
Farrell made even further disturbing findings that users were also swapping real child pornography to each other, both pictures and video footage. He was also given a list of 50 other worlds centered around pedophilia by a random avatar he interacted with.
Jim Gamble, head of the UK's Child Exploitation and Online Protection Unit, says that worlds such as those in Second Life encourage children molesters to carry out their fantasies in real life. It will fuel their desire to do it for real. They can't pretend it's only their avatar doing it because who is controlling that avatar?
The potential of children actually controlling avatars in these worlds is similar to what the documentary Joystick Warriors pointed out. When violent material is introduced in a video game and children have access to it, it can lead to a real-life incident. When guns are used in video games, children can possibly start to have affiliation with guns in real life. The same can be said for Second Life. If a child is controlling an avatar in a world full of pedophilia and child prostitution, they may find themselves in real-life situations similar to the virtual ones, if, for example, they meet up with the child molesters offline and in person.
When trying to decide how to solve these ethical issues, it was important to us that we come up with possible solutions that allowed users who do not partake in these deviant activities the freedom to keep enjoying the game. We decided to use the Potter Box method. So what actions could Linden Lab take to prevent underage victims and show more respect for their users with unhealthy obsessions?
Our values in this ethical dilemma were wanting to prevent illegal behaviors that could potentially harm others, as well as wanting to end the glorification of these behaviors. These values do clash a bit with the Second Life users' value of freedom of expression without being persecuted or restrained. But in the interest of the possible victims, we were able to apply the golden rule principle of finding the middle ground between two extremes, getting rid of Second Life for everyone on one end, and allowing the dangerous behaviors to continue on the other end.
We came to this middle ground. For starters, Linden Lab could implement a monitoring and recording element to Second Life, so if needed, they could go back to an earlier time and see if any offensive messages and interactions that have already occurred. Just as police can monitor online chat rooms to lure in and catch predators, by tracking what is going on in Second Life, predators can be caught and stopped before they are acted on their desires in real life.
Much of the offensive and potentially dangerous material we have been discussing seems to fall under the adult material category, at least according to Linden Lab. As long as the users in these adult areas are 18 and over, Linden Lab assumes that they are following all guidelines. Instead of continuing to allow this to slide by, the strict banning of all sordid material such as pedophilia should be implemented, as well as a much more thorough search. Notice that we aren't saying all adult content should be banned, only the material that could potentially be damaging and dangerous to underage individuals, whether by becoming victims or simply being exposed to it. This also keeps the game available to most users who do not involve themselves in these behaviors.
Not to mention, by banning this activity, Linden Lab will cease to be a helper in the developing sicknesses of their pedophile users, and will stop profiting from other people's problems, at least in this instance.
These suggestions comply with our 3 loyalties. Loyalty to potential victims of illegal acts being portrayed in Second Life, loyalty to protecting children from being exposed to potentially damaging content, and loyalty to players who do not participate in the illegal behaviors, so as not to deprive them of something that they genuinely enjoy.
If someone were to disagree with these decisions, arguing that they take away a person's freedom of expression, we would probably say to them that, while we do not wish to smother anyone's ability to express themselves and be accepted by others, if their actions create potential victims and endanger an underage person's welfare, protecting the victims in this situation who may not be able to protect themselves becomes much more important.